Emily Scar. I'm a senior advisor with the Maryland PIRG Foundation, the statewide consumer group based here in Baltimore. I want to thank Council President Cohen for hosting us. We're here today to release Fast Tracked and Flawed, a new analysis from Maryland PIRG Foundation looking at 2025 Operation Pipeline spending from BGE. The analysis finds that BGE is not adequately prioritizing safety when selecting projects for its multi-billion-dollar gas pipeline replacement program. Maryland PIRG Foundation analysis finds that BGE is charging customers billions under the banner of safety for a program that may actually be delaying the work to replace or repair the riskiest cast iron pipes. BGE's Operation Pipeline program, which operates under the Maryland STRIDE law, has emphasized costly pressure conversions, which require the expensive and time-consuming replacement of new plastic pipes and working regulators in addition to legacy pipes. This approach could impose a long-term financial burden on ratepayers without adequately demonstrating public safety benefits. It could even be delaying the work to repair or replacing aging cast iron pipes. Maryland PIRG Foundation reviewed selection criteria for 34 active Operation Pipeline projects in 2025. Of the 34 projects, 33 list pressure system as a criteria for project selection, and only 11 list BGE's risk scores as a criteria. The more a utility spends on new pipes and equipment, the more it can profit. This is a powerful incentive for wasteful capital spending, and we rely on our legislators and utility regulators to keep a careful watch. As you will hear from People's Counsel David Lapp, if BGE completes its fully proposed $4 billion in STRIDE-related spending, it will cost customers $19.5 billion to pay back over time, including utility profits. Due in large part to capital spending projects like Operation Pipeline, BGE gas customers are paying 3 times as much for delivery now as they were in 2010, an increase far outpacing the rate of inflation. As temperatures are dropping, BGE gas customers are paying the company $2 to deliver the gas for every dollar we spend on gas to heat our homes. I'm thankful for the leadership of everyone here today, not the least of which is Council President Cohen, who has led investigatory hearings into BGE's rates and done community outreach to BGE customers, working to stop relentless cost increases. And thanks to the leadership of our local and state elected officials, things could soon change. As you will hear from Delegate Embry, Governor Wes Moore signed the bipartisan Next Generation Energy Act into law this year. The law incorporates provisions of Delegate Embry and Senator Mary Washington's Ratepayer Protection Act to add safety and cost effectiveness requirements to the STRIDE law. We announced the introduction of that legislation 10 months ago right here. Gas utilities are legally required to maintain the safety of the gas system without increased financial incentives, so these new requirements are long overdue. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers, and then I will close with some recommendations from the white paper to the PSC. We hope we'll have some time for questions at the end. First, I want to welcome People's Counsel David Lapp.
Thanks to Emily and Maryland PIRG, Council President Cohen and Delegate Embry for all your continued attention to this critical issue of gas infrastructure spending. I want to start by sharing a few numbers. We have 2 large gas utilities in Maryland, Washington Gas and BGE. Just 10 years ago, in 2015, both companies' distribution rates were about 42 cents for each unit of gas. This winter, just 10 years later, BGE's customers will be paying 94 cents, while Washington Gas customers just 46 cents. Washington Gas's rates have increased 4 cents, while BGE's rates have risen 52 cents. This winter, an average BGE customer will pay more than twice, over $80 more than what gas customers are paying just 30 miles south on I-95. And that's for the same delivery service. What explains that difference? It's BGE's massive spending on gas infrastructure, driven in major part by Operation Pipeline.
That's right.
Operation Pipeline is BGE's program to replace its entire legacy gas system with a brand new system. BGE is just about 1/3 of its way through the program, but customers have only paid about 3% of the costs. To complete Operation Pipeline, BGE will spend about $3 billion more over the next 20 years at a total customer cost of about $19 billion over time. And that spending will drive BGE's rates much higher than they already are. Customers simply cannot afford business as usual. As highlighted in the PIRG report, BGE's operation pipeline does not prioritize risk reduction. Risk is not equally spread across BGE's system, and BGE is proceeding without considering alternatives to its program of wholesale replacement. And that means ratepayers are paying too much for safety, reliability, and emissions reductions. People often ask, how can we reduce utility rates? And the simple answer is that once regulators approve that spending is generally locked into rates for decades into the future. You can't easily walk back approvals of infrastructure spending that are the main driver of higher rates. And that's why we need to curb BGE's spending now. We need strong, immediate action to prioritize safety, make use of lower cost alternatives, and reconsider wholesale replacement in light of its impact on customers. Thanks. I think President Cohen.
Good afternoon. I am City Council President Zeke Cohen. I want to begin by thanking my colleagues who have joined me here today. I see Councilman Blanchard and Councilmember Conway. I also want to thank David Lapp for his work on behalf of the people. I want to thank Emily Scarr and Marilyn PIRG for their relentless commitment to telling the truth. And I want to thank my friend, Delegate Liz Embry, who showed true political courage in her last session working to pass the Ratepayer Protection Act. When the City Council held our hearing back in February, executives from Baltimore Gas and Electric told us that safety was their top priority. Yet this report tells a very different story. This report confirms that BGE does not prioritize replacing hazardous, unsafe pipes that pose safety risks. Instead, they're focused on upgrading their entire system, pipe by pipe. A reasonable person might ask, why the disconnect? The bottom line is that BGE prioritizes profit for their investors over safety and affordability for our residents. Every time BGE tears up our streets to replace the pipes, they make more money. Exelon's shareholders make more profit. And guess who pays the bill? We do. Out of control capital spending is in large part why gas distribution rates on our bills have tripled since 2010. And don't take my word for it. According to Exelon's own most recent public earnings statement, BGE's third quarter profits increased by 82% since last year. These gains are, and I want to quote from this document, primarily due to distribution rates associated with updated recovery of investments. In other words, they dig up our pipes, we pay the bill, and their shareholders get a windfall. This is what an underregulated monopoly looks like. But on the ground in Baltimore, it looks like the father whose BGE bill skyrocketed to $1,200 and who worries about keeping his home. It looks like small businesses, restaurants that struggle to keep their doors open because they can't keep up with the bills. It looks like the senior who spoke at our hearing and told us that she has to choose between medical oxygen and electricity. It looks like families that can't afford to hang holiday lights and buy gifts for their children. Baltimoreans deserve better. The City Council will continue to fight for our people. Thanks to the leadership of Delegate Embry and other champions in the General Assembly, we have some new guardrails on BGE's capital spending. But there is one entity with the power to truly rein them in, and that is the Public Service Commission. We need the PSC to step up and do their job. Today, I am calling once again for an off-ramp for the planned 2026 rate hike and for a freeze on all future rate hikes. Freeze the rates. The council will hold another hearing to examine these practices in early 2026. It is a great honor to stand with the people that are around and behind me, and it is now my great pleasure and honor to introduce our delegate, Delegate Embry, whose work has truly made an enormous difference on this fight. Delegate Embry.
Thank you. It has been such an honor to work on this legislation. I want to first thank Senator Mary Washington, thank you, who is the Senate filer of the bill, also District 43A, the many, many, many delegates and senators who co-sponsored the legislation, and the leadership in the House and the Senate who said this is so important, we're going to put it in the Next Generation Energy Act. We're going to make this part of one of the three energy bills that we focused on last session. So it wouldn't have happened without them. I also want to put this in context. That bill passed because of years of work by David Lapp, the Office of People's Counsel, Emily at Mary PIRG, CCAN. I mean, there's so many groups who have made this a priority for so many years, and the bill only passed because they had built the data and the record to support it. And that was step one or step 5 out of probably 100. We're at the next step, which now the bill is law, but the PSC has to create regulations. The PSC now has to act on that with that law. And I want to stress, as I've said before, the PSC supported this legislation. They said, we need this assistance. We need this guidance and these guardrails to make sure that we have the tools so that we can protect ratepayers, both in terms of cost and in terms of safety. So the bill was important, but it was just one step along what would be a long path. And this report is yet another step. The report is so important because it makes the point that we knew in part, but it goes that much further and says, no, we have the data to show the utilities are not prioritizing safety. They weren't really sufficiently required to under pre-existing law, and they didn't. And we now know that. So now this report will help the PSC, will help the Office of People's Counsel make sure they get the right data and the right information so that the goals of the Ratepayer Protection Act can actually be realized, which is cost efficiency, saving people money that they don't need to spend, and really truly prioritizing safety, which we all care about. Energy policy remains a major issue. It will be this session. We are so lucky to have Council President Zeke Cohen. We are so lucky to have members of the council who care deeply about this. We're lucky to have all the partners, those who are here, those who are not, SEIU. There are countless groups that were part of that legislation, part of the general energy effort, and will be part of it this session. So it's been a great honor, one of the greatest legislative honors I've had to work with this team and to be part of this, and I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brittany Baker, Maryland Director of Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And I'm grateful to be a part of this team as well and to zoom out a little bit on this conversation. We know that the impacts of climate change are knocking on the front door of Maryland, from heat deaths to flash flood warnings to increases in the number of cold days and extreme heat days that are driving up people's usage of their heating and air conditioning. But not only that, we all carry the burdens of fossil fuel usage, both in homes and at power plants, in our bodies and in our communities. It is time for BGE to stand with communities and lean into the clean energy transition. They have a mandate to provide safe, reliable service no matter what on the system that they currently use. However, future investments need to move Marylanders forward to a cleaner, cheaper energy future. It's time to rein in BGE's misuse of Operation Pipeline and free up funding for the real utility investments and distribution and clean energy investments that will move us forward to the clean energy future. Stop the senseless and wasteful spending and get out of the way of the clean energy transition.
Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to Councilman Blanchard, who just joined us. The Maryland Public Service Commission now has the responsibility to ensure compliance with the Ratepayer Protection Act, which you've heard requires the utilities to demonstrate that their gas capital spending is prioritizing safety in meeting cost effectiveness tests, including looking at alternatives to replacement, including including looking at alternatives to replacement, including repair, relining, or targeted electrification. The PSC should require the BG&E to be transparent, documenting methodology for its project selection and risk evaluation. The PSC should direct BG&E to document considerations of alternatives to pipe replacement. The PSC should require BG&E to separately justify any pressure conversion work to ensure that it is prudent, especially in light of overall risk and safety. And finally, the PSC should deny accelerated recovery for projects that do not meet the safety and cost effectiveness standards under state law. Anyone who's opened their winter gas bill this year knows that BG&E's wasteful spending has gone too far. By requiring BG&E and all gas utilities to properly prioritize safety, the PSC can both make our communities safer and end wasteful spending that's needlessly driving up our bills. Our message to the PSC is simple: don't leave us out in the cold. The time to act is now. Thank you. We can take a couple questions, I think, before I let you guys go in the warmth.
And I do also briefly just want to recognize Councilmember Parker, who's joined us this morning.
I gotta run. Oh, yeah, I always get you all confused. I'm sorry. Parker, Blanchard, the Zacks.
Can you elaborate more on the pressure conversion and risk score distinction, why that shows that BGE isn't prioritizing safety?
Yeah, so I would say number one thing is BG&E is not fully transparent with the methodology. Pressure conversion may offer some safety benefits, but those are separate and distinct than the risk related to legacy pipes like cast iron. In the program, the STRIDE program is designed specifically around replacing cast iron pipes. And by engaging in a pressure conversion strategy, that means they have to also pull out working regulators and working pipes, because those all need to change once you upgrade the pressure. So that should be separately evaluated for safety. And as David Lapp said, we do know there is data around where the cast iron is the riskiest. I don't have all of that, obviously, but the BG&E should be more transparent about that to prove that they are prioritizing safety, as they say. The evidence we have suggests that they probably are not, because by doing all this work and all this expense about replacing all the pipes, they could be using that time to pull out all the cast iron. And then the risk scores, that's proprietary software from BG&E. I can't speak to if that would actually solve the problem, because I don't know what goes into that proprietary software. I would just say that they have it and they do use it for other programs. It's designed by BG&E to evaluate their risk of a main exploding. And they do have it on their criteria, but clearly they're not using that to prioritize Operation Pipeline choices.
So it sounds like it's pretty unclear what's being replaced for safety and what isn't.
Exactly, and that hasn't been required by law until now. So we're just asking for the new law to be properly implemented, and it appears that will fundamentally change Operation Pipeline if the PSC acts.
Emily, I have a question. Kate Lagarde from WBNLTV. Total regular person question.
Sure.
If there's a law that mandates that PSC take action, and allegedly PSC wanted to anyway, then what's the problem? Have they taken too long? Have they not signaled that they're going to? Is there time for them to act? I get that you're calling them to act, but why aren't they acting if they have to legally?
So we're hoping that they plan to act, and we'll actually have to ask them exactly about their plans. So BG&E submitted their 2025 Operation Pipeline projects last January. The PSC has not offered guidance to them on what they need to do this year. So that's an opportunity they could have to act proactively to implement the law. They can obviously react to that filing when it's submitted. The PSC has actually given direction to Washington Gas. So Washington Gas, I think last month or 2 months ago, submitted some changes to their Operation Pipeline, their equivalent program, and the PSC directed them to either justify their project list or make changes, which is due December 22nd. So we are beginning to see the PSC act. The next two tests will be BG&E's 2026 Operation Pipeline plans, and then we expect BG&E to be requesting another rate hike next year, right? Their rates are going up on January 1st. But that's the end of the 3-year multi-year rate hike. So they would be expected to come in with a new rate proposal, which includes all of their capital project spending, including Operation Pipeline. So those are two key tests in the next year the PSC will have to implement this law.
All right, so hopefully we'll let the person answer that.
Yeah.
They still have time. We're hoping.
Yes. Yeah, and they could have done. I was saying they should have acted sooner. As soon as that law went into effect June 1st, the PSC could have said, pause. No more digging up streets. We're going to reevaluate what we're doing. So I wish they'd act sooner, but they still have a really great opportunity to intervene.
Can you guys hear with the
bells?
Should she redo that?
I can re-say that if you want.
The other, the last one.
I never know when I want to just turn it over to you. I'll wait till all the bells happen. No, I'll just re-say, the PSC has opportunity to intervene now. Maryland PIRG argued that as soon as the ratepayer protection went into effect on June 1st, the PSC could have just told BGE and Washington Gas to pause their pipe replacement programs to reevaluate, and I wish they had, but they still have an opportunity to fix things moving forward. If the PSC does not fully implement the Ratepayer Protection Act, the most likely scenario is our legislative champions like Delegate Embry and the legislature can pass additional legislation to be more forceful with their recommendations. But I'm optimistic that they will make those changes.
Have you spoken to auto director at all after activity response about which points?
I have not, but I think others have. Yeah.
BGE is going to say this is necessary, that they need to do these upgrades to make sure that the lines are safe. We've seen issues in the city with gas lines. We've seen issues in other areas where boats have exploded, connected to gas lines. Are you saying this isn't?
Yeah, our evidence is that this is not the most effective way to prioritize safety. And by adding these new requirements to the law to prioritize safety, we can address the leaky cast iron more quickly and more cheaply.
So the project isn't the problem, it's how they're going about it.
A little, the project is part of the problem because PG&E describes their Operation Pipeline as a full-scale pipe replacement program, so it's a problem for sure. But there's other pipeline work that BG&E is doing that is less problematic, and they should reform this program to be in line with the state law. David, do you want to add anything?
BGE has a separate program under which it uses the software that Emily was referring to, Optimane, and it uses that to actually prioritize replacement of risky pipe. Under that program, it is replacing about 5 miles of pipe a year. But under Operation Pipeline, it's replacing more than 40 miles of pipe a year. So that program is a good example of a program that actually prioritizes risk and safety. BGE's program is about replacing its entire legacy system with a brand new gas system. And so it is not prioritizing safety. It is not looking at cost-effective alternatives, and this is hurting customers.
I know the Public Service Commission has obviously approved much of BGE spending. So do you take issue with the way that the PSC has reviewed and approved their spending until now?
We certainly think that there have been improvements at the Public Service Commission, but we're also concerned about the speed at which things are moving forward. So we had the legislation, it was effective July 1, and we're still waiting. We also have BGE doing Operation Pipeline within its multi-year rate plan and not through the STRIDE statute. So we have yet to see what position BGE is going to take as to whether the STRIDE reform statute, which Operation Pipeline has historically been part of, but it's now performing that work through the multi-year rate plan. We're going to see what BGE's position is with respect to the statutory reforms, how that applies to its multi-year rate plan. But we can see from Exelon's investor presentations that BGE is not looking at lowering the amount of money that it is spending on gas infrastructure. It is projecting to continue to spend $500 million or more in the next 3 years on gas infrastructure. That's in its investor reports. So it has no plans to slow down. And that investment is what is driving up utility rates and bills for Baltimoreans.
The law went into effect July 1st.
Yeah, I misspoke. He got it right.
Is it still, I didn't know if it was a different, okay, thank you.
I
Thank
think
you,
it's
Parker.
July.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Delegate Embry correct.